Thanks to LL Bean for presenting today's storybook with limited commercial interruption.
How was your morning?
All my life, changing every day, in every possible way. In every possible way.
Walking around orchards makes me very happy. Just the life and the bounty of it. You get to see months and months of labor kind of translate. And the kind of commitment to growing these, especially here where you're growing such a diversity of fruit. It'd be really easy just to grow the traditional apples everyone kind of knows, but to really commit yourself to growing these weird exotic varieties is quite special. To make an apple on a tree, you've got the apple species or type of tree that's there, and then you have a bee from another tree that comes over and having touched that tree and pollinates the apple. So the apple, the seeds in there will be a cross of those two. And so when that seed goes into the ground, it will not be like its parents. So compared to humans, apples have so much more genetic diversity to them in every seed that you could plant a really small red apple and get a massive green apple. You could plant like an early season apple and get a late season apple. So just the diversity is incredible and unlike any other fruit. I mean, pears do this too, but that's really it. Because of this diversity, a lot of people who think they have something actually have a unique tree. They might have an old tree that's actually what we call a seedling tree, that is a unique apple that only lives on their property. Only if it's grafted is it one of these older varieties they might have. And what that means is that you take an existing apple tree called a rootstock, and you basically cut open a little piece and you take a splicing of a new tree that you want and connect them. How we have Macintosh, for example, is there was one original Macintosh tree. And then someone liked it and they gave Cyanwood these little cuttings to their friends and their friends' friends, and kind of like a network built out. And so you go from one Macintosh tree to thousands, to tens of thousands, to millions. But they're all basically clones of that original tree. That's how we make apples. That's how this orchard exists. These are all apples that have been found elsewhere and now are grown here by grafting.
I started as a humble apple picker. I worked on and off for the previous owner, Royal Wentworth, and he retired. He was 76 years old.
And then we heard that this place was for sale, and we were with some friends and decided it sounded like a really good idea to try farming. So we bought a farm.
And we've been here since 1974. We're tired, but not tired of apples. We're worn out. We made a lot of rookie mistakes. The previous owner was a man of very few words. He was a very sweet guy, but he didn't impart a lot of wisdom. I think he wanted us to learn on our own pace, and it took us quite a few years before we felt like natural at it.
If you come during the weekend, we do wagon rides, and on some days people can go in and watch cider being made, watch the donuts being made. Kids love to come. We do take them on a wagon ride. We teach them how to pick apples, how to respect the tree, how to respect the apples. They remember it. They'll remember it 3 years, 4 years later. They'll tell us about the apples. Well, this is how you do it. This is how you pick an apple. It's awesome. The barn, there was a big fire. There used to be a big house here and it burned to the ground. All the barns burned. And they built that. And when we bought the place, it was storage. And we decided it looked nice as a store. So we've been adding, and we let a lot of people use it as an outlet for their crafts. We have a lot of vendors in there. So that's almost all of the stuff on the sides is craftspeople. It gives all the people in the neighborhood sort of an outlet that I let them take care of it. This is your spot, which is lovely. It's good for me and it's good for them.
Well, these Cortlands were planted by Royal's father, Henry, in 1916, when they still were a numbered variety. They came from Geneva, New York. They're a cross between the McIntosh and the Ben Davis. It was a year or two after they were planted that they were named Cortland.
There's trees here dating back over 100 years, and it's one of the best places to visit and actually pick a lot of these historic varieties. At some point in US history, there were roughly 10,000 different apple varieties grown. When I say 10,000 varieties, these are people on farms, in small towns across the United States, growing things from seed. Some of them taste terrible, some of them taste great. Keeping what tastes great, sharing with their friends what tastes great, and that's where our varieties come from. Even within Maine, there are several dozen apples that have been quote unquote lost that people are still trying to find. Apple trees will live up to be 200 years old, so it is still possible to find some of them.
The apple farm, I think, was designed for something like a pandemic because we're pretty much socially isolated out here. People who just wanted to get out and they were able to come here and be outside and not worry about the virus. So it didn't really hurt us severely economically.
Until November, when we had to close up the barn, which is wide open, because normally I'd move down into a little building, but I couldn't do it because I couldn't have people in the little building. So we just had to shut and do just wholesale. A lot more cooking going on. How do I make applesauce? I mean, that's really, you never learned how to make applesauce? There are a lot of people that don't. So let's start from that. We gave away a lot of recipes. We talked to a lot of people. You know, it was a learning experience.
One thing that's really interesting now, especially with climate change, is the need to kind of go back to how apple trees were grown 100, 200 years ago. So a lot of apple orchards are grown on rootstock that's only meant to live about 25 years. So you'll get fruit really quickly, which is good if you're a commercial grower because you need to sell your apples. But the bad thing is the apple trees will die, and also they're very susceptible to things like drought. So if you have a bad year or two, those apple trees will just keel over. So one thing that people are starting to do, which is very time intensive, is use what's called standard rootstock. Standard rootstock won't produce fruit for 7, 8, 9 years, but that tree could live to be 150, 200 years old. It's deep enough roots it can survive droughts, major pest issues, and so people are trying to figure out, with the changing climate, is how to keep these apples alive. So the other piece of this is some older varieties that were abandoned 100 years ago might be perfectly suited to what Maine looks like now in terms of the climate. Something that gets lost when you have a McIntosh or a Red Delicious is that there's different apples for different purposes. What people don't understand is a lot of apples they have easy access to don't actually translate that well when cooked. So baking with a McIntosh, you'll just basically get applesauce in a pie. Whereas if you're using the right apples, you'll have this firm, crisp texture. Same thing with making cider. There's just apples that are meant for those purposes, but they're not the ones that are widely available. So places like this, kind of saving them and having them, making them available for more people is a very big deal.
Whatever apple is at its peak at the time is the best, and I like most all of them. There's one or two that I don't care for, but
we won't say which ones.
And I love them cooked in any way, you know, apple pie or apple crisp.
Since every seed is a new apple species, the idea of fruit exploring and foraging is really interesting and exciting because you're on the cutting edge. You know, the thing you find might be the next Mac or Cortland. You have to be willing to bite into some apples and spit them out, but every so often you'll find one that's perfect for cooking, for fresh eating, for baking, for cider production. But the only way to do it is to bite into those apples and see how they taste.
I I was a child that grew up with food insecurities, and I know how important it is. It's the root of all the issues that children face.
Here at Portland Public Schools, we have a wonderful opportunity to work with Native Maine. We like to focus on those local foods that we can offer to the students, proteins as well as the fresh fruit and vegetables. Encouraging your students to participate in school lunch helps us to reduce that stigma, and for those kids that really do need those meals.
Hi, and welcome back to Plate the State. I have to say, being at the apple farm, I think was one of my most favorite days of the year.
It was a gorgeous day. The sunflowers across the street, how fun was that?
I can't wait to go back.
I know. We have a lot of recipes using these apples, but first we're gonna get into our chef's tip to talk about them. Hi everybody, welcome to today's chef's tip. So this episode's about apples, and we're gonna be talking about apples. But I'm gonna talk about some of the apples we have here. There are some apples that are great for baking, some apples that are good for cider making, for instance, right? So this first apple, the golden russet, it's a great apple, but since it's a russet, it's also really great for cider making. So people will add that into cider making to give it another rounded flavor. The second one here, Rolf. It's a well-balanced dessert apple, sweet, tart. Supposedly, this is one of the original Maine apples. The next one, Red Delicious. For years, this was the most popular apple in the United States. Again, dessert apple, so as you can eat it right off the tree, but not super great for baking. It gets a little mushy. The next one here, Ginger Gold. Super popular, but again, not super great for baking. It will get a little bit mushy, but super delicious. A lot of sugar content in that. The next one here, Wolf River. This is a great cooking apple. It's really large, so for one apple you can get a lot of recipe out of one apple. I really like that. And the last one we have, this is the
Big and small.
Yep, the Cox Orange Pippin. In Britain, this would be just called a Cox Apple, C-O-X. Great dessert apple. The russet flavor makes it good for cider making as well. And speaking of cider, so this little jar was my grandmother's, and we put our cider in it every year. I love that. The big difference, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, between apple cider and apple juice. Apple cider is made just with the skins, everything. It's ground into this pulp and then drained off. That's why you can only get it short times of the year during the apple orchard season. Apple juice is peeled apples, juiced. It's fortified with a lot of sugar. Usually it's preservatives are added to it so you can have it all year. So.
Oh, that's great. I actually didn't know the difference between that. And Sean did an awesome job filling us in on some of the varieties up at the farm. You just added a great baking element, and you can learn more of Sean's work at the Portland Food Map. And before we get into our recipes, I just want to tell you one thing. You were the apple of my eye.
Oh.
All right, we'll be right back.
I think people would be most surprised by our great selection of not only fresh fish, but local products. We wanted to have a good mix of things that you don't see everywhere and things that you can't get that are both world-renowned as gourmet items and things that really make Maine special.
My goal throughout my career has been to remove intimidation because it's wine. It's supposed to be fun.
Everyone here has a specialty and they can make it really approachable.
So when most people think of cooking with apples, it's generally eating them raw, applesauce, or making something sweet. But Josh and I decided to challenge each other, but I, of course, still went ahead and made something sweet, and he went the savory route. So we're gonna show each of our recipes. What did you make?
I have a roasted apple and cheddar turnover, a little bit of kale salad with some pecans, and a nice local mustard dressing.
Ooh, that sounds great.
What did you make?
I love apple and cheese together. Well, I had to go with sweet. I was in a sweet mood. And because I love pineapple upside-down cakes, I just took off the pine and wanted to see what would happen using apples with some local cider and some cinnamon.
Great.
So
Now let's show them how we did it.
Let's show them how it's done.
All right. All right, now I'm going to show you guys how to make my dish, which was the apple and cheddar turnover with that nice salad with mustard, the kale, and the pecans. So what I have here is just a little bit of puff pastry sheets that I just got at the grocery store. They're usually in the freezer section. Let them get out, let them get thawed so they're still pliable and you can actually, use them without breaking, because there's a lot of butter in puff pastry, right? So I have a circle cutter here. I'm just cutting out some circles. And now I'm gonna get rid of all this. Okay. Now I have some apples and cheddar cheese here. I'm gonna tell you what I did. So I used the Cox Orange Pippin apple. Keeps its shape when it's cooked, good sugar content in there. So I tossed some little oil and roasted it off. And then I have some Pinelands cheddar. The Pineland cheddar, I like using this cheddar particularly because when I break it up, the curds, as you can tell here, it keeps as a large curd. So when it melts, you get that little pocket of melted cheddar cheese, and I love that. I added a little bit of roasted garlic and pepper, all right? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take one of my sheets, I'm gonna take a little bit of the apple, roasted garlic, cheddar mixture. I'm gonna put that on the inside there, okay? I'm gonna take another sheet of my puff pastry, kind of put it on top. Now I wanna go around and just pinch the outsides to help seal it up. As I'm pinching, I'm working the apple mixture back into the center, okay? So when I'm done, everything will be in the center, and as you can tell, it's kind of rounded on both ends right there. When I put this down, I want to take my hands almost like a cup, just get it a little bit more firm. I have a little bowl here. You can use another ring cutter if you want. And I'm just gonna go around and I'm gonna snip off any of the outside pieces that I don't need anymore. Now I just have a little fork and I'm gonna push back up on each side. This is gonna help seal any cracks that I have if it's gonna come out, because I want all that cheese, that natural apple juice, the roasted garlic. I want that all to get back on the inside, okay? So I'm gonna take that, and now I'm gonna move it over to a baking sheet that I have here. A little egg wash here. And this is just one of the eggs from our chickens, a little bit of water. I'm just gonna paint the outside with this egg wash. Now what that does, this is gonna go into about a 400-degree oven, so we wanna keep that really hot. That egg is gonna make it get a really golden brown color, and it's gonna help puff the top. The puff pastry has a lot of butter in it, and the apples, the cheddar, it's gonna steam, so it's really gonna kind of puff up, and then it'll start to deflate a little bit, but that egg is gonna give it the nice crunchy crust that we want, okay? A little bit of rock salt, okay, a little bit of pepper, and now we're gonna pop this right in the oven. So I just pulled the turnover out of the oven. It's perfectly golden brown. I'm gonna show you in a sec, but I wanna show you the salad first. So I have some baby kale, some toasted pecans, a little squeeze of lemon. This is some local mustard. I love using raised mustard. Such a great, tang to it. A little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt, and just a hint of olive oil. Not too much, remember, all the butter that's in that puff pastry. So we're just gonna mix this up really quick. Right in our bowl. So now I'm gonna make a little nest for our turnover. Look at that. It's like hidden in an apple orchard. So that's how I did my savory dish. The apple, roasted garlic, and cheddar turnover with the kale, mustard salad, a little bit of pecans on it.
We're getting there to sunnier days, being with the ones we love, and now with those you've missed. This is you remastering the art of life. And while you're getting back at it, we'll be here to help you master the art of money. Norway Savings. Live your life in color.
This week's pantry tip is brought to you by Norway Savings Bank.
All right, now we are on today's pantry tip, and we go apple picking, we buy apples, and we have so many, and then we're like, ugh, apples. But you can dehydrate them and make them last. So in March, when you want a bite of autumn, there they are. So if you have a dehydrator, you can dehydrate apples, or you can bake them on a really, really low temperature in your oven. And then you have apple chips. And there's a lot you can do with this. So first you just want to make sure they are stored in like a tight mason jar because apples will reabsorb moisture from the air and ugh. So get them nice and dry, and then you can just snack on them. You can crumble them on ice cream. You can put them in salads, or you can put them in alcohol. So Josh got this for me for Christmas last year, and it's this really cool gin infuser. And every season he likes trying something with a new seasonal fruit. And so here's one with apples and some cinnamon sticks. And we use this nice Batson River gin because we love supporting local with the apples. So there's so many fun things you can do with them, eat them, drink them, and follow all of our tips on platethestate.com.
At Town & Country Federal Credit Union, our mobile app lets you do almost anything from anywhere. Deposit checks, pay bills, move money, and much more. And if you need us, we're always here to help. Learn more at tcfcu.com.
Today's leftover ideas are brought to you by Town & Country Federal Credit Union, helping you stretch your food dollars.
Hi, welcome to today's leftover idea. This is going to be one of my favorite uses of leftovers. Apple peels, apple cores, all of this. I'm going to show you the best quick dessert. Take your apple cores, peels, everything, pop them into a bowl, a little bit of brown sugar, some apple cider, and we're going to bring this over to the stove, the lowest heat you can get, and we're just going to let it go for about 30 minutes, okay? Now, I have some already done. You can see how it's just reduced down. It's almost its own sauce, okay? That brown sugar and cider's leached out a lot of the natural liquid that's coming from the peels and the cores. I'm gonna pop it into our blender. Now this would be similar to like an applesauce, but I like this a little bit better because it's super smooth. Those apple skins have that incredible flavor. And the best part is, use a medley of different apples, a nice panache. So I'm gonna just pour this apple butter almost into some mason jars here. I'm gonna add a little bit of fresh whipped cream. Maggie's gonna love this. And then, this is so fun. So a quick beer batter. I'll give you guys the recipe on the website, but it's just some beer, a little bit of flour, mix it together, let it sit for about 20 minutes, and then just drip it into some hot oil, and you have this fried dough. I sprinkled some cinnamon sugar on it. Put these nice little cinnamon sugar fried dough crunchies on there, and you have a super fast dessert. So delicious, so fun, a lot of different textures, the smooth apple butter, the nice cold whipped cream, and the little fried dough on there. Thanks so much for watching this leftover idea. And for this and all of our ideas, please go to platethestate.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you again next time. I've been coming here for about 10 years. The best part of Harbor Fish is you smell the seafood, you hear the ice in the background. I love the fact that they're always ready to just make you the #1 priority.
My personal preference this evening would probably be the swordfish is what I would focus on.
They can walk me through exactly what I'm looking for what recipe. When I was a chef, I could always trust that this is the best quality seafood for my guests, but I love the fact that this is where I shop for my fish for home too. It was the best part of both worlds. I come in here, I see chef friends, I see family friends, but I can trust that not only will the fishmongers here and the cutters and everybody working the counter will help me make the right choices and help me cook this fish the best way it can be.
All right, for my recipe, I know we were trying to go a little savory with our apples, but at heart, I'm a baker. And especially this time of year, what's better than making cakes and pies and eating cakes and pies? But we're using apples, so it's a little bit healthy, right? So as we learned in our chef's tip, there are apples that really lend themselves better to baking. So I've gone ahead and chosen one Wolf River apple and one Rolf apple. And went ahead and peeled 2 of them. All right, so we already have one cut up into wedges like this. And then we're just gonna cut them Do a little sliceroo to get that middle part out, because that's not delicious. All right, so over on the stove, I made some caramel, just out of sugar. There's nothing else in it. So we have that lining the bottom of our pan. And then I have my batter, which is just apple cider, eggs, sugar, flour, things like that. And all these recipes are found on platethestate.com. So because it's upside down cake, we have to put the top in first. So just go ahead and alternate your apple kinds around and around. You might have a couple left over for a little snack. That's good too. All right, like that. All right, so that looks beautiful. So a little tip, take a paper towel with a little bit of cooking oil on it and just give it a little run around your pan there. All right, so we have our batter, and you just want to cover the apples with it because it is going to rise. And then when this is baking, oh, you can hear that caramel cracking. The caramel is going to melt all in there, and then when you dump it upside down to serve it, you have this beautiful covering of it on the top. Okay, so we have our oven at 350. We're gonna put it in for about 20 minutes, and then we'll see what we have. All right, so my upside down apple cake was in for about a half an hour. You can tell when it's done where you just put a little toothpick or knife and it comes up clean. And then you're gonna take your serving vessel. To be a little eating the gum, patting the head thing here. Ugh. And then this is when we pray. Woo! It kind of worked.
Nope.
All right, this is when Josh comes in and helps. Good enough. We just do a little sea salt. Ah, it's going to taste delicious. All right, I can't wait to show you next what wine I paired to go with this.
It was so exciting watching you make that. That was such a great idea with that upside down
That means a
apple
lot.
cake. Yeah.
I like it when you like what I make you. And I am so excited for this because cheddar apples, I love that you did the mustard. Give it a little bit of tartness.
Yeah, I
little
love that.
tartness. And you'll see I actually only found one pairing today because it goes really well with both dishes. This 10-year Madeira does a beautiful job complementing the mustard, the pecans, and the cheese in your dish.
Oh, yeah.
And the fig and the sugar aspects of it do a really nice job with mine. So we get to share one thing.
Oh my God.
And this is distributed by Sopo Wine Co. and you can find it at independent wine stores all over the state.
It's great. I love this aroma.
I'm very excited to eat that. Let me say goodbye. Thanks to Hancock Lumber for use of your beautiful design kitchen. Thanks to all of you for following along at Plate the State. And cheers to wherever your appetite takes you. And we'll see you next time. Okay, give it to me. Want a piece of this?
Yeah.
Hello, sunshine, won't you come in? It's been so long since I've seen that smile. Oh, and I'd be grateful if you would walk with me and share some of your.
Oh, now it's right side up.
Maggie. Goodness, you just have to put it on the plate.
Hi everyone and welcome back to State the Plate. Being at the Apple Farm.
No, we're going to call that Plate the State.
Thanks to you for following along at platethestate.com.